Y'all ready to bring them out? I'm going to say their names individually as I was instructed by Mr. C over here. So let's start. Ladies and gentlemen, Howard Hewitt, Carolyn Griffey, Jeffrey Daniel,
Shalamar.
All right.
yes.
So, Howard, we were just talking. Angela thought I should sit over here with her, and I thought maybe she should sit over there. And
Hey, man,
I
was
won.
saying, yeah, the lady wants to sit next to you,
right?
Tony.
Yeah.
I think that's a little secret message, Howard. We won't talk about that.
okay,
You said it was
okay.
open, but not that open.
However, I don't know why we're all so far apart, but
I know.
that's another conversation. We're so far away from each
All
other.
right, fine.
How's everybody doing?
Hey.
Everybody.
Well, I'm so glad you guys are here to join us. You know, this is fantastic.
Yes.
We have a lot to talk about, and we've known each other for quite some time. You know.
I think that's the beauty of this whole thing. We've known each other for forever. Angela, we met like
1,000 years
a
ago.
1,000 years ago. And, of course, Tony went all the way back in there. But we just started hanging out about 10 years, now say 10 years ago or something
Yeah,
like that.
I kind of let you hang out with me. That's what happened.
I know. But that's the good
Oh,
thing.
I'm
That's
kidding.
that's a good thing. Familiarity is cool. Yeah.
It's definitely family. I mean, you guys have so much history. I think all of us are kind of just, sitting here and sitting at your feet and just want to hear all the stories. I came for all the stories as well. I would like to start with a question. The name of the group, Shalamar, and how that came to be.
I
Okay.
didn't
I'll take you
Yeah,
to the very
scoot up.
to the genesis of what happened. Don Cornelius, of course, is a producer of Soul Train, and then he and Dick Griffey got together and started Soul Train Records, and they had signed the Whispers. They had this young lady's mother, Carrie Lucas, and then they formed the Soul Train Gang. So we had an audition for it. Now this is what's crazy is because us dancers on Soul Train were the Soul Train Gang. Don Cornelius, hey, here's the Soul Train Gang, right? So then he puts a recording group together called the Soul Train Gang, and we all auditioned for it, and none of us made it.
Oh, man.
And I was devastated, okay? So, as it turned around, one of the members of the Soul Train Gang, Hollis Pippins, dropped out. Then they got me and put me in the Soul Train Gang. And then they put me on an airplane. I went out there doing a residency in Washington, D.C. with New Birth, Ray Goodman and Brown, and I forgot who else, and the Soul Train Gang. So I did that with them for a couple of weeks, and then we got back, and it was around Christmas time. So one night I get a call. I was at Jody Watley's house, so I get a call. They said, Jeffrey, telephone for you. I pick up the phone. Jeff, listen. And Don had flown back to Chicago to be with his family. So Don was in Chicago with his family. So Don calls me. He said, Jeff, that Soul Train Gang thing it's not happening. And I'm like, oh my God, he just put me in a group and it's not happening? But he said, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna build a group around you. We're gonna put you in this group. Do you know a girl who can sing? Jody had never sang before. Her mother's in the adult choir at the church. I'm in the youth choir. Jody's in the congregation. So Jody hadn't sang before. Jody was going to be in the group, but we needed a girl who could sing. And the girl I was looking for was Ilda Barge's cousin back in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Her name was Mickey Braden, but she was pregnant, so she couldn't come. So we just started training Jody's voice, and Jody went and auditioned for Dick Griffey, and Dick heard Jody's voice and said, oh, we don't need another girl. Jody can do it. So the producer who did the first album for Shalamar with the Uptown Festival, the collage of Motown hits, because that's when disco was out and people were just throwing disco songs out everywhere. And they put together all these Motown songs. If you guys know Uptown Festival, it's a collage of Motown songs sung by Gary Mumford and Leo Kennedy. And so that is the song that brought Shalamar together. The producer name was Simone Susan. He was from Morocco. And he came up with the name Shalamar because Shalamar comes from There's a garden that the Sultan built in the Middle East, and it had water pumps with no machines. It had 500 caretakers because it had all these flowers. That's why the French perfume is Shalimar, from the fragrance of the Shalamar Gardens. That they took the L-I and put a L-A, and we are Shalamar, which is the fragrance of R&B, funk, and dance music.
Nice, 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 nice. So I want to get to Carolyn for a moment, and I want everybody to understand that her father was a giant in the industry. You know, he and my father worked together very closely, and she knows things that I don't know, and I know things that she don't know. Okay, so we're skewed in that way. But Carolyn. Just briefly, tell me how you got involved, as well as what it feels like to kind of follow the footsteps of your father and protect his legacy as well.
Exhausting. I didn't realize when I was stepping into certain things that was all that it entailed, until you look around and everywhere you travel in the world, you see the footprints of, you know, your father's work or labor. You go to another country, you hear a song, you hear a Solar song, you hear this, and, you know, it just actually kind of accidentally came in the process of taking care of some Shalamar stuff. But I never thought that would be my responsibility. But it's a blessing to be able to be a part of it. It gets emotional at times, as I'm sure you understand. You know, it's business because you have to take care of it. And like you say, you do want to raise awareness. You want people to know the real history, because everybody can gather their own ideas of what they hear or but you only will know the true story from his history, from the people that were there and that were a part of it. So I would say that it's a blessing and a curse at times, but it's something that has to be done.
She's being all proper and everything over here. I don't know. Who is this lady sitting next to me right now?
Hold on, let me just say
Okay,
this.
well, no. I mean, I've known Carolyn since she was 11 years old,
But
jumping
nobody
up and
asked
down.
you.
And
Don't listen to him.
No, the first, and quite because Jeffrey and I started doing shows over 20 years ago. Some people from Japan, you know, called me, wanted us to do about 5 shows in Japan. So Jeff calls me, and we called Jody, but Jody didn't want to go. She was doing some other stuff. So Jeffrey and I went, you know, and so we started doing shows. We did shows in England. We did shows
London.
in Africa, in Asia. And then we wanted to put the female vibe back in the group again, you know, and there was nobody. Carolyn was doing. She would sing background for me every once in a while, and she had her own group as well. And so she was the only person that we even considered coming into the group because of her knowledge, also of her knowledge and the history of the group. You know what I'm saying? We looked at we talked to Saida Garrett, who's a dear friend. But there was something that I not only is she amazing.
That's because you didn't know the words and you would ask me and I knew them.
But not only is she an amazing vocalist, but also, you know, it is, like I said, her history. She knew, you know, the foundation of the group. She knew the whole thing, and that was the only consideration we had when we decided we were going to put the female entity back into the group.
Can I finish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But Spice, you know,
No,
I can't hear you.
You can hear me. So, you know, but it gets you know, I wasn't going to go deep, but Howard wants to bring up deep. So it got a little, you know, it gets deeper than that, you know, because Jeffrey has really kind of come to my rescue more times than, you know, I can count when it comes to new groups. And we can address this, you know, because you see the Temptations aren't always the originals. You see, you know, each group as they progress, someone leaves, someone may pass away, and it's the way you continue that either becomes, you know, it's a blessing because what you're doing is you're carrying on a legacy. And I hear oh, you're not Jody. If it's not Jody, it's not Shalamar. The thing is, what I want people to know is Jody Watley, when I was a kid, let me just be honest. When I was a kid, and don't you even say it, when I was a kid, Shalamar was my favorite group. I loved all the other groups. I loved it, but I had the Shalamar was like my Michael Jackson as you know, kids growing up. I never ever thought that I would be doing this, but as I came into it, there's been a lot of it's hasn't been easy. It definitely hasn't been easy. It wasn't an easy transition, and let me just say that don't believe everything you see. Always search for the truth in everything. And this is where the truth is, right here. And everything started right here on Soul Train. So I
Amen.
definitely am honored to be
Amen.
up here with you and being able to talk about this.
I love that. I mean, do you even know the power that you guys had in America? You guys were the coolest people. And growing up, you know, with Soul Train, everybody wanted to be a Soul Train or on Soul Train or be a part of it. So just talk about that, those days, and just maybe
Okay.
the pressure that could have been put on you.
I don't think it was like pressure, and we were having fun. We were having a good time.
So here's what it is, and I think a lot of you know this yourselves. I think we're all around the same age group in here, and there's maybe some younger or whatever like that. When Soul Train came on television, and this is my personal experience, and I think some of you may share this as well. When Soul Train came on television, I was already a dancer and I loved to dance already. But when I saw Soul Train, it was the first time we saw young black people on television looking good and doing something great. Because that was in the era of a lot of buffoonery comedy shows, or either we were being chased by the police or playing drug dealers and blah, 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 blah. When Soul Train came on, it showed the best of black America.
And young America.
And that's just, you wanted to be a part of it, even if you didn't go on the show, but you just had to watch it. My personal experience, if my mother wanted to go shopping to the supermarket, and I'm the youngest in my family, I'm the only boy, come on, Jeffrey, we're going shopping. But Mommy, Soul Train's on. Shut up, we're going shopping. I would cry all the way to the supermarket. Literally, I would cry all the way because I'm missing Soul Train. You know, and that's something that just meant so much to me. So it was my life's endeavor to be a Soul Train dancer. If all I was a Soul Train dancer, I still would have been just as satisfied. I had no idea that they were going to start a record company. I didn't know this was going to happen, blah, 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 blah. So what I want to say is, and because Tony is on this stage too, and he knows this, but I don't think we can remind him enough and celebrate it enough, what his father created for black America and for the world globally as well. People all over the world, you know. It was such an amazing platform for us to be proud of, and we're still proud of it. And it became the longest running television show in American history. And this is what they do. So when we run into these adversities, trying to do things, especially back then, you talk about the 70s. Today they got all these platforms, you know, online, internet, this and that, cable channels, blah, 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 blah. Back then it wasn't like that. They only had that, and for you to get in, it was hell and high water. Yeah. So for Don to even make that happen, for Dick Griffey to even make that, for Berry Gordy to make that happen. These guys had to struggle to make these things happen back then. And so for Don to put such an amazing platform together that we can launch ourselves from, and it meant so much to so many artists, so many dancers, so many people. And look at it, 2025, and Soul Train is still here.
I mean, it was a platform for black artists that we never, like Soul Train, then later on was Arsenio Hall. When those things went away, it was like, you know, we weren't going on the Tonight Show that often and all that kind of stuff. But back in the day, I mean, like you're talking about, because back in the day, I'm from Akron, Ohio. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And every Saturday, where were we? All of us, right in front of the TV,
That's right.
watching Soul Train. I used to see Jeffrey and Jody on Soul Train dancing. I said, wow, they're cool. But we used to watch, because I was always in music, and we used to watch Soul Train for to see who was playing, you know, the artist that was playing, and also for the girls, of course. But like it was like, you know, Jeffrey, I would see them dancing. I'd say, whoa, you know this. And when I went to L.A., when I finally went to Los Angeles, and you know Mavericks Flat, that's when I first met them. Yep, who did Mavericks Flat? All right,
Crenshaw
Yeah.
Boulevard.
Crenshaw Boulevard, definitely. And when I met Jeffrey, I was like, oh man. I mean, it was like because my orientation to him was Soul Train. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Speaking of Mavericks
what,
Flat, real quick before we go, I'm sorry, baby. Speaking of Mavericks Flat, everybody, you're not all from LA, but Mavericks Flat was the premier club in Los Angeles at the time in the 70s. Shaka Khan and Roofers played there before they got big. The Commodores played there. The Whispers of Richard Pryor. Oh my God, I can go on and on. Lakeside was discovered in Mavericks Flat, all that. Howard was in the house band in Mavericks Flat, and they were sending them overseas to do tours and that. So when Howard used to perform there, I didn't know who he was, but this guy was singing, and I used to just walk up to him, man, you got some good chops, man. Man, you can sing. He just, oh, okay, thank you. Never knowing one day that here we are, 50 years later, and here we are.
I know. I mean, every time we finish a tour, now we just sit, you know, we sit and look at each other and just, man, it's been years, and you know, to have a friend for that long is like, you know how valuable that is, and so you know I value that every day, always.
Same here.
Well, let me switch over to Jeffrey for a second. And a little known fact, or you guys might know, Jeffrey is an excellent dancer, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw him on stage. And, you know, I've always been curious myself. You know, he actually showed Michael Jackson how to do the moonwalk, you know. And, Jeffrey, I was wondering, what was that like? I mean, I know, you know, I hear different kind of stories on how it happened. And actually, you were in a documentary, The Hippest Trip in America, explaining that, which I thought was really hot. But how did that all happen? And what did you really get from it based on when you saw him do it? Because anytime Michael Jackson does something or did something, it was like he created it. You know, it came from his mind. It came from his whatever. But what did it feel like to you?
Okay, once again, I have to give credit to Soul Train because after I got into Shalamar, I went back to Soul Train and did a couple of exhibition dances. You can see them on YouTube. I did one with Eclipse, the three guys, and we're in black, and we open up with the newspapers, and we fold them, and then we go into the popping. That's the first time body popping and the backslide was being seen on national television on Soul Train. Then I went back again on Soul Train when Shalamar performed. We did a performance, and after we did our performance, I put on this taxi outfit, and that's when I was doing the backslide with the RCA dog, like I'm walking the dog. And I had the subway sign. And I got in trouble because I painted the subway sign, and it's black and yellow, and I'm wearing a New York taxi outfit, which is black and yellow. So I brought it there, and I said, Don, I want to do it. Don said, man, you ain't going to put that thing on my stage. Look at this thing. Because, you know, I painted it myself, but it's supposed to look like graffiti-ish, right? And Don's like, man, come on, Jeffrey, man, you ain't putting that thing on my stage. and so we had a thing about it, and he finally capitulated, and he let me put that on the stage, and I do, because I came up from behind it like I was coming out of an elevator and doing all this stuff like that. So little did I know Michael's watching this. I did not know Michael's watching this, and Michael's watching me on Soul Train. Now, I'm already in Shalamar, but when I'm off tour, I would come back to Soul Train and still do dancing from time to time, which was making Dick Griffey mad. Dick, Jeffrey, you're a star now. You're in Shalamar. You can go down there dancing on Soul Train. but, you know, it was Soul Train. That's where I grew up. Come on. If I'm at home, I'm going, and all my friends are there. So Michael was watching me dancing. So when we played Shalamar, when we played at Disneyland for the grad nights, Stanley Dillard, our road manager, said, Jeffrey, your student's coming to see you. I said, huh? What are you talking about? Your student's coming to see you. You'll see. He knew. I didn't know. I said, what are you talking about? Michael Jackson brought little Jackson. This is 1980. And they stood on the wing of the stage and watched us because he saw what I was doing on Soul Train, and they saw the response we were getting on stage. And one more thing I'm going to tell you guys. He never admitted this, but Howard Hewitt was a double threat. Michael had his eye on Michael because where's the singer coming from? So Michael had his eye on Howard too because Howard's vocals were like, and Michael's like, okay, all right, do I got some competition in this thing? So, so it was the singing and the dancing thing. So Michael watched it, and then he got in touch with me and said that he wanted me to teach him how to do the dance. Now, here's where the discrepancy comes in. The next day, Shalamar had to go to the Virgin Islands to do a tour. So Michael's calling for me, but I'm gone. And they said that Jeffrey's not there. So they got in touch with Casper and Cooley, who are my dance brothers, who I did that dance exhibition on with the three guys, Eclipse. So they went and showed Michael some as well. And when I came back, then I started working with Michael, and Michael's like, I want to do it like that's the one. So there's a discrepancy about who taught Michael the moonwalk or whatever like that. But Michael wanted to do it exactly like I did, and not just the moonwalk. It was called the backslide. The moonwalk is the other dance because it's like you're on the moon. There's not a lot of gravity, right? So you're like, floating. That's really the moonwalk. That's the moon. So the other one we were doing was called the backslide. And that came from the Electric Boogaloos. The Electric Boogaloos, I got to give them credit. The Electric Boogaloos from Long Beach. They're the ones that started the body popping and all that, Popping Pete and Boogaloo Sam and Boozer and Decky Robot Dane. So I got to give the credit to the Electric Boogaloos as well. But I'm the one who took it and put the long strides in it and that. So now Michael's calling me, and I'm going to Michael's house, the Havenhurst house in Encino. And of course, my first time, I met him a couple of times, but it's my first time being one-on-one with him and just working with him every Sunday. And it's like, I'm pinching myself because you know how elusive Michael is. I mean, you don't see Michael. And now I'm like, I'm at Michael Jackson's house. I'm at Michael's house. It took me a few times to get used, but he's a regular person. He's just like anybody else. And he's just, a natural person. So it was the most amazing experience of my life. But because I worked with Michael, and because I choreographed his Bad Video and Smooth Criminal, and I went to Brazil with him for the They Don't Really Care About Us, and we did one in New York and one in Brazil, and I worked with Michael for over a 20-year period. But because I worked with Michael Jackson, I became a choreographer. I was in demand. Vanessa Williams' debut video, The Right Stuff, they called me because that's Michael's choreographer. Johnny Gill's debut video, Rub You the Right Way, they called me because I was Michael's choreographer. All these people were calling me to do their videos. I did videos that you guys would never know. Troop Ready for the World, the Go-Go's, Levert. Oh my God, I did so many. Her mother, Carrie Lucas, Show Me Where You're Coming From. I did her video. So I did so many videos. But at the end of the day, it's all because I was dancing on Soul Train.
Yes. Wow. Wow. It's mind-blowing. I mean, just the history. It's, do you know how great you are? I mean, just to be around in those days and creating something that's just so fantastic. Sometimes, I just wonder, do you sit back and say, wow, yeah, I was a part of that. I helped that come to fruition. I mean, sometimes it's easy for people to, I think, take it for granted.
In hindsight, and when you look back at your body of work, that's when you reflect on it, and you in retrospect, and you realize the value and what it. Just like Soul Train, when we were on Soul Train and it was happening, we just wanted to be there. It was just part of something. But now, when you look back at it and see what it is and what it meant, then you really realize it. Along the way, you get certain accolades and that too. But even Shalamar, we'll be in the studio making an album because we're working so hard. We don't know how successful the song's going to be or what's going to go on. But,
Yeah.
but then looking back.
Yeah, I mean, when I always tell people, they say, well, did you know that was going to be a hit record when you were? You don't know that. You just, you don't. Well, and I always say, I don't know anybody that's gone in the studio and came out and made a hit record. because there's so much other stuff that goes into making a hit record. Record company, the promotion,
Producer,
and,
musician.
everything. So, yeah, and so and that's one of the reasons why I love live performances, because you get instant gratification when you do a record. You got to put it out there. You give it to the record company. You give it to people. Blah, 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 and then you got to wait and see if y'all dig it. If y'all gonna say, that ain't nothing, or you're gonna gravitate towards it, and then you get gratification from that. But when you do a live show, and when we step out on stage, and you guys just react, and the energy that we get from you on stage, that's instant gratification. That's like, there's nothing like that, and it's something that we just and you don't take for granted. The most important thing is not to take it for granted, because it didn't have to be that way. Some cat told me one time, I know a guy that sings "Say Amen" better than you sing "Say Amen." And I said, I know a bunch. I said, I know a bunch of cats that can sing me up under this thing right here. But when you put their name up on the marquee, that's when the difference comes. That's when, who's gonna pull butts into the seats? Who's gonna go out and buy, not records anymore, but whatever you guys are buying now. So.
Well, speaking of a performance, we got a surprise performance on that monitor right there. So maybe we should douse the lights, and then we'll talk a little bit about.
Hey there, Shalamar. Big D. Talk to this lovely lady first here. What's your name there?
Delisa Davis.
Well, Delisa, it sure is a pleasure meeting you.
Oh, it's a pleasure meeting you also.
What's your fine self? No, I'm just kidding. But she is fine, ain't she? Mr. Hewitt, you got an entirely new arrangement here. You must be proud.
These are my new partners in crime, man.
Yeah. Well, ain't gonna be no crime. Mr. Mickey Free, I've had the pleasure of meeting Mickey Free.
Mickey! Wayne Oliver, better known as Flip.
Flip? Hold it. No, go ahead, Flip. I bet you can't do it again. No, don't do it. You know we ain't got no insurance, brother. So if you hurt yourself, you just be, well, that's great. You're a break dancer, right? LA break dancer?
No, from Atlanta, Georgia.
Do they do that in Atlanta?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, apparently they do, huh?
Evidently.
Tell us what's on the agenda, Howard.
Right now, we're listening to music for our next project. We'll be going in about 2 or 3 weeks. We're reviewing music right now. And that's basically...
for your album, right?
Yeah, for the next album. Yeah.
Album, rather.
Album, you know.
Let's get it right.
That's basically the priority right now, you know, just getting into that.
And congratulations to the group.
Thank
for
you.
the Grammy nomination.
Oh, yeah, for Dead Giveaway. We're very proud. Real
What
proud.
you going to do later in the show?
Yeah, definitely.
Shalamar.
Oh my God! What? Oh my God, that's amazing.
So, Howard, the reason I wanted to play that back is because I really wanted to talk to you about change, and how, you obviously were open to, different members of Shalamar and things of that nature. And how did that affect you or affect your music or, any thoughts on that?
It was everybody always asked me, how was the transition from this to that and this. I'm sometimes to a fault so good at departmentalizing. You know what I'm saying? Where you have so many different parts of your life, everything that you have to put in this compartment. I have so many different compartments in my life, and once this one's done, I put it up there. I don't forget it. I don't brush it away. I put it in this compartment and put it in this special place, and then I'm off to the next thing. You know what I'm saying? And so like, you know, with at that point it was a great time. Mickey Free's a great guy, man. I don't think I would have made it through that part of Shalamar without him, because he was like a comedian. He was crazy, but and so talented. But you know, at the time when Jeffrey and Jody split and left me, and then and then so I at that time I said, hey, you know, Dick, you know, maybe this is time to do the solo thing. I can do the solo thing. Well, no, you still got, this is my Dick Griffey impression. No, you still got 2.5 years left on this contract, Howard. You know, so either you can go to court and get out of the contract, or you can go overseas and do it over there, or stay at home or whatever. So I wasn't going to stay at home, and I hate court, because court is like throwing dice. You know what I mean? You don't know whichever side the judge gets up on, that's going to be your judgment. So I always try to avoid that. So, you know, I said I'm going to, you know, I'll do, and the other option was do another Shalamar album, you know. So, you know, that's when we did Mickey Free. I met Mickey in the studio. I was recording some stuff, and I used to see him in the studio all the time. And then we started talking, play guitar, and then, you know, I put him in the group. And then we went on this national tour to find the girl for Shalamar, you know, and Delisa was the winner from Tennessee. But what was funny, because I always heard Dawn Lewis. Y'all know Dawn Lewis from A Different World.
She's still mad about it.
She was the contestant. She won New York. She won the New York competition, because we went to about 15 different markets and stuff. So in New York, she won the that competition as far as that. But then everybody had to come to L.A., and then Delisa won the competition in L.A. But that was her entrance into L.A., and from that she got a different world. She got onto a different world. So it's like, you know, so transition into that, and then, you know, you just do that, and you do your thing, and then, you know, when it was time, when I ran my contract out, then put that in its compartment, you know, and then it was time to do the solo thing. So, you know, just, you know, the main thing, y'all, praise God, Christ, the Holy Spirit, Yahweh, Yahshua, all of that. Just thank God and give honor where honor is due, always. And you know, and so, you know, I think that's always been my kind of like my whole thing as far as life is concerned. Just, hey, you know, we're gonna deal with it. Praise the Lord, it'll be cool. It's gonna be fine, you know. And if I say that I'm a child of God and I'm worrying, then that doesn't make sense. You know, if I'm a worry, you know, then that worry means that you don't really believe what you say you believe. You know, because if you know that you're a child of God, then what you worried about? You know, why are you worried?
Faith or fear, you make the choice.
You make
Faith or
this
fear.
something. I read a thing one time at a really early age with the group that I was with in Beverly Hills in Crenshaw at Mavericks Flat, and I had a cat, Lonzo Daniel, John Daniel, the owners of Mavericks Flat. Lonzo was like a big brother to me, you know, and so, like, you know, before we went to the first gig we had was in Helsinki, Finland, right? And so we had to, you know, fly to England and the whole thing. And so Alonzo, he took me over to the May Company, which was across the street from Mavericks Flat. He brought me this three-piece suit, black three-piece suit. I was about 21 years old, 22. And he brought me this three-piece suit. He said, this is how you should represent yourself, you know. And then he gave me this book called As a Man Thinketh. Oh, yes. About this thin, right? And you could sit one sitting, you could read the whole thing. So I had 11-hour flight going over to England. So I read the whole thing, and there was so much great, amazing stuff in there. But there was one thing in there that I read that shaped my life, and even to this day. I mean, I'm almost 70 years old, y'all. And it's like next birthday. But even to this day, it said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it said, you must learn how to deal with circumstances rather than let circumstances deal with you.
Ooh, yes. How about that?
I was like, I read that thing over 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. I'm like, what? Learn how. I have control over that. And you learn how to deal with circumstances rather than circumstances dealing with you. That's how you live your life. Praise God.
Praise God.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's a word. How many knew you were going to come here and get a word? You know, as life does happen, we all have situations that we can either learn from or stay stuck there, right? And when you look back, we were talking about just your amazing careers, the 3 of your amazing careers, and the longevity. What do you tell young artists who are coming up and they're looking at you? Of course, they know who you are. They might not want to be on, be dancers, or maybe they do. What do you tell them in order to be successful?
In today's context, you don't tell them much because they'll tell you, you shut up, you ain't sold no record, we getting paid, we got money. No. But,
Oh, that's messed up.
but for those who want to listen, I'm serious. You go online, look at it.
No,
You,
it's true.
you try to give them, advice and stuff like, you just hating because so-and-so's getting paid, they getting money. The guy who works at the post office gets money. The guy who works at the gas station is getting paid. So what are you talking? But that's the mentality that's going on, because we're in a material-driven world.
Yeah.
And the young kids are thinking about all the glamour and the materialism that they see, the cars and the jewelry and all that. They think that's life. And unfortunately, that's what the media and society is gearing the kids towards. But if we do want to give them advice, we just tell them this. And this is what I say. If you want to be in the industry, if you want to be an artist, work at perfecting your craft. Be the best you can be at what you do, because then you will have longevity. Now they have the computers, so anyone can take it and make beats and this and that and make songs, and that's what's going on right now. They even have auto-tune. You don't even have to be a singer. Auto-tune will put you on tune and make you sound like a singer. So there's a lot of people who are in the industry and making music, but they're not real artists. They don't know how to play an instrument. They don't know how to sing on key. They don't know. Michael Jackson told me, he said, Jeffrey, there's a lot of artists out there who are selling records, but they don't know how to walk out on stage like a star. They don't know how to perform like that. And that was the truth. And that was back then. So it's even more so now. So I just tell them, whatever it is that you want to do, don't think about the money, because if you're good, the money will come. And if you really perfect your craft, and if you evolve over the years and continue growing and building, then you will have longevity in the industry. And that's the best advice I can give them before they tell me to shut up.
I'd love for all 3 of you to answer that.
Carolyn,
I guess I agree with everything that he said, but what I've learned, especially coming from where I've come from, is very important to learn your craft, but more importantly, to know your business. Learning the music business, people know more about the music than they do the business. And that's where a lot of artists get hurt, and I've been a victim of that, even knowing better. So it's knowing what you're getting into, knowing what you're afforded, you have to learn about percentages. You have to learn about what it takes to put a record out. And then once you get it out, who has to be paid? You have to know that network of what you're getting into, because some people will think, oh, I'm about to get the money. You got to spend money in order to make money. So it's not just a thing where you get a deal, because a lot of times do they even do deals anymore? Like I say, people are pretty much putting themselves out, like you say, on the internet, on YouTube. They get these channels and they, influencers and all that other stuff. So the industry has changed. But If you are still going the route of getting a record deal, make sure you know your business and make sure you cover yourself in that. So.
You know,
Yeah, because it's like they say, it's music business. You know, those two different things, the music business. But I think because young people always come in and I say, well, what do you think the most important thing is? And as far as because unfortunately this is not a business where you can take a piece of paper and say, number one, you do that, number two, you do this, number three, it's such a subjective situation. But you know, I say, what do you think it is? And they'll say, you got to be in the right place at the right time, which is true. You have to be in the right place at the right time. But there's another piece of that whole saying that they hardly ever talk about, is being in the right place at the right time and being prepared. Being prepared. And I'm a living testament of that. I got the offer to join Shalamar on a Friday. I went to Dick Griffith, I'm cutting this whole thing down because it gets deeper than that. Jeffrey calls me. I'm in the office at the Motown building. I was working with some people at Motown. I'm in the office at the Motown building, going through this whole thing with this producer. Talking about, man, you guys give me the Motown runaround, all my money and the whole thing, right? And the phone rings. And it's Jeffrey Daniel calling from New York. And he says, man, I know we approached you one time before, but we're actually approaching you again about, we want to offer you position in the group, lead singer, blah, 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 blah. And he said, where are you? You at the Motown building? I said, yeah. He won't tell me to this day how he figured out what office I was in. I know it because I know how he knew I was at the Motown building. And so he says, you at the Motown building? I said, yeah. He said, well, Solar Records is in that same building on the 9th floor. He said, we've already talked to Dick Griffey, and he's waiting on you to call him, blah, 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 and go and check it. And so I get off the phone, and I tell the guys that I'm in the meeting with, what the deal was. And, Shalamar, blah, blah, blah. And I just listened, and then I told him, well, listen, I'm parked on the street. I got my car parked on the street. I got to go put some money in the meter so that I won't get a ticket, right? And okay, and I went right down to the 9th floor, got in there, talked to Dick, and that was on a Friday. Saturday, I went over to Dick's house, watched the videotape of the Shalamar show, and then I'm sitting in the rocking chair, and he says, well, sing something. Jeffrey and Jody say you're, that's my Dick Griffey thing. Sing something. Jeffrey and Jody say you're a great singer. I said, sing something, just a cappella? He says, yeah. I said, Lord, me and you, right? And I broke into Field of Fire by Peebo Bryson, right? Something that you told me, and just killed it, nailed it. He said, got through the first verse, half the hook. Dick says, okay, I'll be right back. He goes upstairs, comes back down, gives me some cash, leaves, pays some bills, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes on other pocket, he brings out this airline ticket. He said, yeah, back then you could, this was before 9/11. So I could ride on your ticket, Yeah, and you could ride on mine, you know what I'm saying? So like he said, there's an airline ticket, you got to catch the red eye out tonight, meet the group in New Jersey tomorrow, which was Sunday. He said, you got to learn the lip sync and the choreography to take that to the bank. He said, because Monday, you got a TV show to do. Wow, yes. And that's exactly how it went down. And being in the right place at the right time and being prepared.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's incredible.
And what TV show was that?
Oh, man, it was in Patterson, New Jersey. It was like a little wannabe Soul Train.
Okay.
A local.
Wannabe Soul Train show.
A local East Coast show. It was a local. It wasn't
local. It was a local dance show.
It was something Jeffrey just said about doing the work. And I don't know if he stole that from my father or my father stole it from him. But, when I was working for my father, it's always hard to ask for a raise for some reason, and I needed a raise. You know, I'm like, come on, Pop, I got things I gotta do, right? So I went in I tiptoed in his office one day, you know, and I said, you know, Dad, you know, it's a little tight right now, and I need a raise, you know. And he looked at me for a couple of minutes, and he said, you know, Tony, stop worrying about the money so much. If you do good work, the money will come. And I'm like, this is some bullshit here. I mean, that meant absolutely nothing to me at the time. Absolutely nothing, you know. But as time went on, you know, as I matured and I started to do my own thing and I started to run my own company, years later, it made so much sense. It made so much sense.
Because it's
you know?
like it's like foundation. You know, you laying the foundation. I used to watch them when I was a kid when they would build these houses in my neighborhood in Ohio. They would take forever building the foundation, putting the cement in, the steel and reinforce, all that's going to take forever. And then they build the house, boom, 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 boom. The house is up. And if the foundation is strong enough, you could tear that whole house down and build a whole nother house on top of it. You know, so you put in the work. Put in the work, man. The work is what's satisfying. You know what I'm saying? And then everything else, you know.
One thing I want to say, add on to what Tony was talking about, and I'm sure Tony knows this more than me because it's your father. Even though I was like, Don was like an industry father to me. He was kind of like a father to me in a certain way like that because I grew up under him. They put me in the industry, you know, they put me on Soul Train and all this stuff. And I was one of the kids that was closer to Don. He allowed me to come up to the office. I used to work in the Soul Train office. Not officially. I would take their cars to the car wash. I'm taking Don's Rolls Royce to the car wash. I'm taking Dick Griffey's Mercedes to the car wash. I'm taking Chuck Johnson's Fiat Spider to the car. I used to get the trade magazines. I used to go fetch them lunch. I used to do odd knit things, and they just pay me out of the pocket like that. You know, so it was like an unofficial job, but I was kind of working at the Soul Train office at one time. In fact, the thing with Don is, and I remember back in the days, you even confided with me. You had a talk with me because you were trying to. He came out from Chicago, right? And now he's in L.A. You know, and as you said earlier, I was one of the only people his father trusted. Don called me up and said, Jeffrey, my son's out here from Chicago. I want you to take him around to some clubs. So I was the one that he entrusted to take Tony around to the club scene and show some clubs and that. And so, but even on Soul Train and even with the record company, and I think with you, now looking back on it, like we said, we didn't understand it. You're right. We didn't understand it then, but looking back on it, Don's whole thing was this, because Don had to build what he built from scratch. Nobody helped him. He used to be, I don't know if you guys noticed, he used to be a TV announcer at first. He used to be a TV...
in Chicago.
Yeah, back in Chicago and all that.
Black's View of the News and a couple other things.
Yeah, before he started Soul Train. And then Soul Train was local in Chicago for a while, and then it got national syndication. So it was a step-by-step thing. It wasn't just like, here's Soul Train, and there it is. No, it was a step-by-step thing. So those guys, they broke that mold when they made the Berry Gordys and the Don Corneliuses and the Dick Griffeys and these type of men who pioneered and built what they built from scratch. So they didn't want to give it to it. They want to make it easy for us. So they made us, like I said, I auditioned for the Soul Train Gang group, but they didn't put me in it. But when the opportunity came, okay, Jeffrey, here, okay, he's proved himself. So I think it was, like you said, they wanted us to go out and build our own path and character and make our own mark and do it ourselves. Which, having said that, I have to say this, because I haven't seen Tony. When's the last time we saw each other? Because I live overseas.
while,
You guys,
years.
that's why you guys. I was in Japan 20-something years now. I've been in Nigeria for 12 years now. So I've been living overseas for a very long time.
Right.
So there you go. I go with my Niger. Niger. Okay, we got a Nigerian in the house. So
Jeffrey's an international kind of guy, you know.
He's an international-
Even when he talks,
international.
it's like
leave me alone.
he got this flair about him, you know. I mean, I love that shit though. I really do.
So the point was, they just wanted us to stand on our own feet and to build our own thing, and get the respect, because that's how they did it, and that's the way they saw it. Even with Dick Griffey, the fun days were at the earlier days of Shalamar with Dick and Don both in the recording studio with us, and they were hands-on and stuff like that. Then Don fell back, and then Dick stayed a little longer and that, But what I wanted to say is, having said all that, and because I haven't seen you in so long, I haven't had a chance to tell you this and this is from the heart, and I'm sure a lot of you agree, because you are all here on this Soul Train tour, and he's carrying on the legacy, but we are so proud of you for you carrying the legacy, but not only carrying the legacy that your father laid down, but you making it your own and doing it your way and making your own moves. And you are officially Tony Cornelius, and we love you and we respect you for what you are to us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And I know we got to get out of here real soon, and I want Angela to have probably the last questions, because she's going to be mad at me if she doesn't have it. However, I wanted one more thing to talk to Jeffrey to explain to you guys, because I think it's interesting, is how he did Soul Train in London. And I wanted him to tell a quick story, because I know he can get long-winded sometime. But I want the quick story of the London Soul Train. Was it Soul Train 21? Or was
The 620 Soul Train.
What was it?
It was called the 620 Soul Train.
620.
Because, London, they have all the subways and the trains, right? So it's like it came on at 620. So it's like the 620 Soul Train arriving in the station. So that's why it's called the 620 Soul Train. Okay, so I'll be as succinct as possible. In London, I had left Shalamar, as Howard said, so Howard... I didn't leave Shalamar. I left America. so I'm in London. It wasn't like a thing like that, because I cried. I was sat in my flat a few nights crying, and I didn't even know why I was crying. I was just in London by myself. I left the group that I love. I left the country that I love, and there are times that I just sat up and cried because I didn't know what was going to happen. But as Howard said, when you are prepared and you put the work for it, it happens. So they got in touch with me, and they said, Jeffrey, we're bringing Soul Train to the UK. I'm like, wow, really? Yeah. They have been trying to get the rights from Don for God knows how long, and he finally capitulated and let them have the rights to it. So they asked me to come down and audition. And I'm like, audition? Okay. So I went and auditioned once and went home. Then they called me back for another audition. So I auditioned twice, went home. So they called me back a third time. And when I went the third time, they put me on the camera and they said, Jeffrey, you got the job. Now, can you imagine this? Soul Train was the thing that I just wanted to be a part of when I was a 15-year-old kid. Now I'm a Soul Train dancer, and I'm one of the prominent dancers on the show. Now I'm in a record company that was started by Soul Train, and now I'm in the UK hosting 620 Soul Train. And I got an award. Thank you. And I got an award for the best presenter. They gave me an award for the best presenter. And I did not know this at the time because I was not raised in the UK. It was the very first black music show in the UK.
Wow. Believe it. Wow.
Did everyone have a good time today? I mean, we asked really good questions. You guys gave us more than we bargained for. I think this was an amazing conversation. What do you guys think? Yeah? I mean, did you guys love this conversation? Love it so much. We're not going to hold you any longer, but we do want to thank you so much for being here, especially all of our guests. So for Tony Cornelius, I'm Angela Stribling, Shalamar. Thank you so much.
Thank you
This
very
is All
much.
Access.
What show is this?
It's All Access.
Thank you. See, she always forgets to say all
I
access.
said
We're
it.
trying to promote this thing, and she,
It's All Access. What's
See,
the name of the
that's
show,
what-
Tony?
All access.
Oh,
Thank you guys for coming. Really appreciate it. Okay?
can I say one more thing?
Sure, sure.
Shalamar, Soul Train, all of this would not be nothing without all of you. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
So, give yourself
Yeah,
some
make it
round of
happen.
applause.
Amen to that.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.